Evening, wherever you are in the world today. I hope you're absolutely fantastic. I was going to kick off and just give TradingView a massive shout out to say thanks so much. I went down to more, and under donations, I saw that TradingView themselves donated 200 coins to me. I think the comment goes along the lines of change is as good as a holiday. Will be interesting to hear your thoughts as you progress through these new trades. Thanks for sharing this. So, man, it's so great to be a part of a community, first and foremost, but is it so great to be a part of an exchange that actually watches your material, that promotes it, and donates coins to you and supports the work that you do? I got to take my hat off to TradingView for that. Guys, thank you. I appreciate it, and you're well appreciated. All right. Another thing, just I don't always do videos about the notifications, but I see there's been quite a lot of support towards the change, which is actually a little bit surprising to me, as I thought there would be resistance to support Bitcoin more and not necessarily move over to new markets because of the kind of the crypto gang out there. But there's been a hell of a lot of support. So with that, I want to say that today is going to be a bit of a longer video. The reason being is because, as a thank you to, of course, TradingView, the exchange and the TradingView community, as well as those who have supported this change, I would like to show you a bit more than I usually do. And what we're going to cover today is the setup of cycles. Cycles is a super powerful component to have in your trading toolbox. A lot of traders get overly obsessed with price, and they get obsessed with pitchforks and angles and channels, but that doesn't really mean that much unless you know when to close your position, when there's a change that's going to happen, and when the market's going to flip. So cycles for me was the big aha moment that took me from reactive to the market and depending too much on oscillators and price action, and instead gaining control from a time perspective in knowing when things are going to move or not. And today, once again, we're going to set up the cycles so that you can perhaps add this aha moment to your trading experience and perhaps get the leap up of results that I got once discovering it. So you can see on the screen that we've got two charts. The one on the left is my trading chart. It's my more reactive chart. It's what goes the distance. It's where I make my profit from. And on the right-hand side, I've got my trend determination chart. Now, the reason I have two is because the transition on the higher time frame will govern the trend direction on the lower time frame. Also, the price action interaction on the Gann tool on the higher time frame will also give me a heads up of what's going to happen on the lower time frame. I love to have long positions and take my profit way up. But I also get a sense of vertigo when that happens, because when it starts to go down and you see your profit stop and go in the other direction, it's very tempting to close. So to avoid that, I go to the higher frame and see where price action is interacting within the Gann tool, and that really helps open the positions for longer and rack in that larger amount of profit. All right, so on to cycles, guys. Let's get into the start of a cycle and where we close a cycle. My cycle every week starts off at the midnight mark on a Monday, and then I close the following cycle at midnight the next Monday. All right, so for me over here, if we look at the bottom of the chart, Monday at midnight, and then I go forward a week, and then I drop another vertical line Monday midnight. So I'm just looking at the bottom of the screen, watching those numbers update. And that's what your first cycle will look like. Now, to place a cycle into the future, we pretty much just do the same thing. So we look down at the bottom of the screen whilst we have our vertical line. And if I just move the mouse down, you'll see as I'm updating the price, Monday the 30th of September at midnight is where I'll drop that line. For good measure, I'm just going to write here end of cycle. And just to help you guys, I'm going to put here start of cycle. Within the cycle, there are 10 turning points. These are the 10 turning points that I lean into to see whether or not a transition is going to come to an end or a new transition is starting. Before I get into that, which I actually shouldn't do today, as we're going to start building on just basics and then get more, what's what I'm looking for, advanced as we go, more provisioned. I won't cover too much of that just yet. Let's rather just retract and kind of settle in with cycles. There are some things to note about the cycles. One of them is, how do you get this cycle to synchronize with the lower time frames so that they are telling a similar story? Because it's pointless having this lower time frame cycle randomly set up if it's not going to directly speak to what is happening over here. So there is a way to synchronize them all the way down so that they all start at the same point. But before I get to setting up the lower time frame, I just want to cover some additional requirements of what it takes to set up cycles correctly. Now, when I was traveling the world, I spent some time in Central and South America. And whilst I was down there, I committed my time zone to -5 UTC. At the time of doing so, it was when the daylight savings was synchronized to the New York time. And I found that, again, whilst traveling the world, in terms of how market cycles start, to be synchronized with New York is probably the best way to set them up. So no matter where you are in the world, and that's totally up to you if you want to follow this advice or not, but I'm just going on my 7 years of comprehensive experience, I would recommend adjusting your time zone to -5, sorry, not -5, New York time, which will automatically switch alongside the daylight savings time zones, which I think it happens on the 5th of November this year. So New York time is where you should start the cycles from. And as you'll see at the bottom, I just had to do it that way to show you guys what it's like. The time now is no longer 0000, so it's no longer midnight on Monday for the start of the cycle, nor is it the midnight on a Monday to close a cycle, just because we've changed it from Panama time. Well, actually, this is Peru time. So Lima is in Peru, so -5. Half of the year, it's in time with New York, but it stays fixed throughout the year because it doesn't switch with the daylight savings. But when working alongside with New York time, sticking to the New Yorks as the beginning and the end of the cycles, for me at least, brought on the highest accuracy of results. Because to my belief, I could be wrong here, but I believe that New York is the capital of capitalism around the world. So they really know how to put money into markets, Wall Street, and so on. So again, I would set all of your time zones to -4 New York time, and they'll become -5 in November. But for now, let's just move that back to be Monday midnight, New York. All right, for some reason, it's not sitting flush at 0, 0. I'm not going to get too finicky, but that's the idea, is you want to get it at midnight. So we're going to do 4 minutes beforehand, where these should actually land at midnight. Now, moving on to the lower time frames. As these cycles exist on your weekly time frame, so this is the 32 minutes, it should do so on all the lower time frames as well. Something I've been saying in my videos, for those who've been staying quite close to them, I've been saying that the strategy that I follow works on all markets and on all time frames in the same way. And the same applies to this market. So I've moved away from Bitcoin. I've now got the Euro JPY. I'm probably going to consider the DAX, or the German 40, as well as the Dow Jones. So by doing that, I will set up each of those markets in exactly the same way. And why this is so important and so relevant is because I can now set up all of the lower day trading time frames in line with my dominant trend direction time frame, and then profit alongside with it, because I can synchronize them together. So to set up the lower time frame, what I'm going to do is just move this price action on this 32 minutes over there, and then open it out a bit so we have more visibility on the lower time frame here. And if I zoom back and kind of squish the price data together, you'll notice that my anchor start to my cycles on the lower time frame will be at the same time. So that's my synchronization line that starts every single week in exactly the same place. It will be at the same time as the start of my 32-minute cycle. So I've got my trading cycle alongside my dominant trend cycle, and how I'm able to achieve that is to start the cycles again every single week at midnight. I think there's a lot going on here. If I just move that away. So if you look at the bottom of the screen, you'll see here Monday, 23rd of September, 0, 0, and then we'll build it out from there. Now, the question is, how long are these cycles? What is the length, or should I say, of these cycles, rather, between here and there? Well, the difference in space for the lower cycle and higher cycle can't be calculated in the same way as you could on the higher frames, because obviously it's a lot more reactive on the lower frames. So if you're taking, for example, the start and the end of a cycle over here, then you'll just drop it on at Monday midnight and then drop it again at Monday midnight of the following week. That's not possible on the 2-minute, which is obviously where I trade from. And how you go about doing that is by measuring the distance between these 2 points at 315 bars. So feel free to write that down if you need to. 315 bars is the magic number that applies between this point and that point. So over there, 315 bars, basically 10.5 hours for the 2-minute chart. Then all you need to do to set up the rest of your cycles to get present as to where price action is now is bring it forth 315 bars. So that's cycle 2 for the week on the 2 minutes. Then bring that forward again. That'll be the previous cycle. And now for our current time cycle, I don't really go on down there. You bring it down forward again. And that's pretty much, guys, how I set up cycles on the higher frame and the lower frame. I might leave it there today because we're already at 15 minutes. And I think there was quite a bit of new information that was shared today that you should probably rewatch to make sure that you got all the finer details. And before we get trading and forecasting and taking advantage of Forex, I recommend just going back, taking some notes, getting familiar with what I made mention to, and then we can build on it from tomorrow going forward. So to wrap up, thanks again, TradingView. Thanks again to all the supporters on the comments as well as the boost to suggest that you're favorable or happy to see the change. And yeah, this is not the end of the market selection. So we're going to stick with the JPY pairings for a short while to come. And then to build on our portfolio, we're probably going to look at the German 40, which is also known as the AX, or the Dow Jones, also known as the US 30, and start getting a good collection of non-related markets to have multiple opportunities per day to lock in the thousands of dollars that the markets do offer many, many skilled traders. And on that note, I want to say goodbye. Ciao for now, and I'll catch you in the next one.